These days, Dillon Danis is mostly viewed as a universal laughingstock. A quick glance at the internet will show you that his credibility is at an all-time low, and sadly he's viewed as a joke more than a martial artist. In fact, he's now at the stage in his life where even if he wanted to make a comeback as a legitimate martial artist, sadly it would likely be too late, as his best years are now well behind him, and he has since been plagued with serious injuries. More than anything though, we can all agree that it was his work ethic and attitude that ultimately let him down. However, this wasn't always the case, and at one point he was actually seen as the future of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In this video, we shall explore just how good he was and how good he could have been if he had reached his potential. Back in 2014, Danis first made his name due to his run at brown belt. For those wondering, this is the rank before reaching black belt and is still pretty prestigious. At this point, he'd been training BJJ seriously for a number of years. He was also coached by Marcelo Garcia, who is viewed by many as one of the best ever in the sport. Ironically, Garcia is also known for his humble and approachable attitude. Anyway, as a brown belt, Danis looked borderline unstoppable. In 2014, he won the brown belt worlds in gi and no gi, as well as Pan Ams and the Abu Dhabi Pro. In short, you'd have expected him to continue his run as a black belt, and had it not been for his terrible attitude, he probably would have done. It should be noted that sometimes certain BJJ guys look amazing at brown belt, but cannot carry it over as a black belt. This does happen and isn't too uncommon. However, all bias aside, it's a safe assumption that Danis would have settled into an incredible black belt if he had have stayed focused. Sadly, his black belt career only lasted around 2 years, and towards the end of this time, his head had clearly been turned. In other words, his actual black belt career was very short and wasn't great, but even then, he showed real promise. Firstly, his black belt record was 18-16. However, when you read between the lines, it was much better. Firstly, he was only submitted once during this time, which is fairly impressive by itself. This was a heel hook by Gary Tonin, which is nothing to be laughed at. One of his other losses was by a tight advantage to Leandro Lo in the gi. This was when Lo was at his peak, and Danis was merely 1 year into his black belt debut. Over the years, Lo literally won everything available in the gi and is still considered as one of the greats, so this alone shows just how good he was, and on another day, Danis could have defeated the veteran. Another loss included a decision at ADCC against Gordon Ryan in 2017. This was before Ryan really hit his stride, but in this competition, Ryan still got a silver medal. Other tight losses included a separate 2-0 defeat to Leandro Lo, and his last match at black belt, which was a penalty loss against world champion Muhammad Ali. In other words, whatever you think of Danis, he was truly a game competitor at his peak, and fought some of the very best at the time. To only get submitted once against these guys at such a young age shows how good he could have been. The fact that 6 of his 18 losses came in the final months of his career also shows how much his mental state affected his performances. In terms of victories, there is more proof that Danis was the real deal. He successfully triangled Josh Hinger, guillotined Tex Johnson, and beat the likes of Edwin Najmi and AJ Agazam convincingly on points. These are all guys who medalled at events such as Worlds and ADCC at black belt. In other words, there's no reason why Danis couldn't have done similar or even gone on to do better. Returning to his brown belt career, he even tapped Gabriel Arges multiple times, who would eventually become a 3-time black belt world champion. What was just as impressive of Dillon Danis was his leg lock game. Although most people tend to think about heel hooks, these are not legal in the gi. Danis was an expert at the knee bar and would also hit toe holds from the same positions. To this day, there aren't too many black belts who could consistently hit knee bars like Danis did, who had some great entries and control when attacking the knee. So, where did it all go wrong for Danis? In short, it looks as though the fame went straight to his head when he started coaching Conor McGregor. As a talented but impressionable kid, he didn't manage this lifestyle very well and got sucked into materialism. He then took McGregor's heel persona and ran with it himself. However, unlike McGregor, he wasn't successful, either financially or in terms of sporting achievements. Such was his attitude that even his mentor Marcelo Garcia, the man who had given him his black belt, kicked him out of his New York gym. At this point, it was the beginning of the end. As the years went by, his career went stale, and aside from beating a few cans in 2 Bellator fights, that was as good as it got for Danis. These days, his image is half meme, half influencer, which is worlds away from his potential as a teenager. On a final note, it would be difficult to speculate where Danis could have taken his BJJ career. Obviously, ADCC is very tough, and he may not have won gold with the likes of Kaynan Duarte and Gordon Ryan. However, he could have possibly medalled and even won world titles in the gi. In other words, he could have built a real legacy and gone on to be one of the greats had he stuck it out. If nothing else, the story of Dillon Danis shows that sometimes, if it comes too quickly when you're young, then everything around you can come crashing down.